If that damn curiosity hadn't forced me to open the door that last night, maybe my mind would still be at peace. My name is Jake Graham. I recently got a job at a local bar in a small town. The bar was modern and stylish, but I always felt that something about the atmosphere wasn't quite right. I first noticed it when some of the older employees talked about the back door. The back door was always locked. The bar owner, Mark Denver, said the key had been lost. But what really worried me was something Aaron, one of my coworkers, mentioned. One night, while we were cleaning the tables, he casually said, "At night when everyone's gone, you can hear knocking from behind that door, like someone tapping from the inside, but softly." At first I laughed. I thought it was just another one of those made-up stories people tell to make the bar seem creepy. But 2 nights later, while closing up, I heard it myself. It was around 2 a.m. I was finishing the last of the accounts when a faint knocking sound echoed from the back of the hall. I froze. I listened carefully. For a moment, I told myself it was just my imagination. But when I heard it again, I stopped breathing. I walked toward the door. The dim emergency lights cast a flickering shadow on the wooden surface. The handle was covered in dust, a sign that no one had touched it in a long time. My heart pounded. Carefully, I pressed my ear against the door. Silence. Probably just my imagination, I told myself, turning back toward the bar to gather my things. But just as I reached for the light switch, a faint rustling sound came from behind me. I turned around. The door was slightly open. I could swear it had been shut. My legs felt weak. I aimed my phone's flashlight at the door. There was nothing on the other side, just complete darkness. A damp, musty smell filled the air. Something was there, or maybe it wasn't. I took a deep breath and stepped closer, but I felt like someone was watching me from inside. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning I saw Aaron and told him the door had opened. His face went pale. "Did you see what was inside?" I shook my head. "Just darkness." A few nights later, while organizing the storage room, I heard the noises again. This time, Aaron was there too. He stared at the door with wide, terrified eyes and whispered, "Jake, what do you think we'd see if we opened it?" Neither of us had the courage. But that damn curiosity wouldn't leave me alone. After my shift ended and everyone had left, I went back to the door. This time, I brought a flashlight. I had to know what was inside. My hand froze on the handle. For a second, I thought I heard breathing. But maybe it was just my imagination. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. I aimed my flashlight inside. A narrow, dusty old hallway. The air smelled of mold and damp wood. I stepped forward slowly. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet. It felt like no one had walked here in years. At the end of the hallway, there was another door. My heart pounded in my ears. I placed my hand on the handle and pushed. The door groaned open and a wave of cold air rushed out. I swept my flashlight across the room. Small space with concrete walls and a single wooden chair in the center. The walls were covered in tally marks, as if someone had been counting days. A chain lay on the floor beside the chair. Someone had been locked in here. And maybe they still were. My legs nearly gave out. A rustling sound came from behind me. A chill ran down my spine. I turned around and there was nothing. Or at least nothing I could see. I could feel something breathing behind me. I ran. The next morning, the police came. They found footprints leading from inside the room toward the bar, but no sign of anyone breaking in from outside. Mark Denver only said, "That door's been locked for years. No one should be in there." But I knew I hadn't been alone. A few days later, I noticed one of the older customers, an old man named Henry Calvin. staring at the bar from a distance. When I approached him and asked about the door, he gave me a heavy look and said, "If you're smart, you'll stay away from there." I didn't know how seriously to take his words, but deep down, I knew I hadn't uncovered the full truth. The back door, that room, and the footprints that came from inside. Something was there that wasn't supposed to be found. The real question is, who was in there? And more importantly, why? I'd be grateful if you could like the video before I continue the story. Let's get back to the story. What do you think a night guard in an empty parking lot fears the most? Let me tell you my story. My name's Michael Rivers. I'm the night guard of a commercial complex parking lot in downtown New York. It's not an exciting job, but after a few failed jobs, this was my only option. The night shift, hours when you don't hear a single human sound, and only the cold, soulless fluorescent lights shine on the cars. At first, I thought maybe this silence and solitude would be good for me. But I soon realized that silence isn't always pleasant. The first time I saw that message was in my second week of work. On the windshield of a black BMW, written with a finger on the foggy glass, it said, "Be careful, they're watching." At first, I laughed. I thought maybe it was a childish prank. But when I saw another message on a different car's windshield the next day, my smile froze. This time it said, "You're next." I took a deep breath and tried to be logical. I checked the security cameras. Found nothing. No traces, no suspicious movements. It was as if these messages appeared out of nowhere. I told Gina, my day shift colleague. She laughed and said, "Maybe the parking lot is cursed, Mike." But when he saw the seriousness on my face, she said she had never seen anything like that. In the following nights, the messages increased. The warnings became more personal and terrifying. "Watch your back," or "They're waiting for one mistake." Gradually, I started feeling like someone was following me. Even when I was at home, I felt a pair of invisible eyes monitoring my every move. When I complained to the complex manager, Andre Thompson, he just frowned and said, "I don't have time for ghost stories. Do your job properly." Right then, I realized I couldn't rely on anyone. I decided to solve the problem myself. At night, I hid in the dark corners of the parking lot, trying to catch a suspect. But I never saw anything. The cameras also recorded nothing. The only conclusion I reached was, either a genius was playing with me, or I was going insane. One night, when I found a new message on a car's windshield, I felt a strange sensation. The handwriting looked familiar. It was like my own handwriting. I was confused. Could it really be me doing this without knowing? These thoughts tore my mind apart. I couldn't sleep anymore. I jumped at the smallest sound. I stared into my own eyes in the mirror and asked myself, am I really behind these stories? I even started writing down everything that crossed my mind, just to make sure I still had control over my thoughts. Another night, while checking the cameras, I heard a faint rustling from one of the parking lot's corners. My heart pounded. I slowly walked towards the sound, but when I got there, I only found a crumpled piece of paper. It said, "You can't escape them." At that moment, I felt like I couldn't take it anymore. Finally, after a month of nightmares, I resigned. When I left, the messages stopped. Gina called me and said, "Seems like the parking lot's calm without you." I tried to laugh, but deep down, I knew the story wasn't over. A few weeks passed. I thought everything was over, but one night, when I returned from shopping and walked towards my car, my heart stopped. On my car's windshield, I saw the familiar handwriting. "Running won't help." For a few moments, I just stood there staring at my reflection on the glass. The question that gnawed at my mind was, who was really behind this story? Or maybe what? That same night when I got home, I locked all my windows and drew the curtains. But even in the darkness, I didn't feel alone. Every little sound made me jump. My phone rang. When I answered, someone on the other end took a deep breath and said, "We're still here, Michael." At that moment, I realized this nightmare wasn't going to end so easily. Maybe I'd never find out who was behind these stories, or maybe it's better if I never find out. If you want to hear more scary stories, make sure to subscribe so we can reach 1,000 subs soon and bring you more.